Now, it is a common 21st century adage that robots are stealing our jobs, that they're faster than us, smarter than us, and more rational too. But is it true? Will millions of people really lose their jobs because of automation in the next 100 years? Well, Alberto Casilli isn't so sure. The author of Waiting for Robots, he argues that many of the jobs we think are being done by robots now are actually the work of human hands sitting by computer screens. He joins me here in the studio this morning to tell us more. Good morning to you. First of all then, at the heart of your concept is this idea of digital labour. Tell us simply, what is it?
Well, digital labour is a highly taskified and datified labour, which means that basically it is based on microtasks, and the simplest one is, of course, the click. You click on something or you add some information to something. Imagine a content online, like a picture on Instagram, and you add a label on it, a tag on it, or a hashtag on Twitter. This is one way of creating value and also teaching machines to do what they do. And in the meantime, to produce data, which is, of course, the basic productive resource for today's AI-based economy. And this also means that this digital labor is not formally framed like it used to be with employment, with regular jobs in the past. And the people who actually teach machines to do what they do today are usually paid 1 or 2 cents to teach machines and to, train algorithms, to validate or test if connected objects are doing what they do right. And this means that we are facing a new workforce, which is geographically, economically, and socially different from what we have inherited from the 20th century.
So you don't buy the argument then that robots are taking our jobs away from us?
Robots are taking our employment from us, which means that basically people who produce and sell AI-based technologies are trying to disrupt regular workforce and regular work environments, which means also that they are trying to inject a new type of labor, an invisible one. And this is the problem with today's click workers, the fact that they are not recognized as such for many reasons. Sometimes they are described as consumers. Think about the people who tag data or content online on social media, or sometimes they are geographically remote, removed even. Many of the people that today train or filter information, well, they are based in emerging countries or in developing countries, and this means that they are far away from the people who actually put in place smart technologies, so they don't see them.
That's right. So give us a sense then, if we're talking about artificial intelligence in the next 50 years or so, how will it look different when it affects employment here in France to perhaps a country like India?
Well, you have to imagine that AI and artificial intelligence can be construed as an outsourcing method, a method to outsource processing and especially data processing to countries where the average wage is lower. So lower income countries where people are ready to work for 1 or 2 cents per task and at the end of the month earn something like $130, which is in some cases the equivalent of a salary. So for these people, so meaning in countries like Indonesia or India or many African countries, this is one way to access the market for work, but not for employment. And then on the other side, this also means that many processes are now outsourced and delocalized, as the French would say, to other countries. So basically, behind or beyond AI, there's a lot of manual labor and digital labor in terms of the fingers.
Does that mean, though, that most of those people who perhaps will lose out when artificial intelligence becomes a bigger part of our societies will be in countries like in France and in Europe, whereas those countries like India, like Indonesia, that are more technologically perhaps focused, won't lose out as much in the future?
This is, of course, an important point to make, that we are basically redefining the geography of, technology production. Today, Silicon Valley is probably losing relevance compared to Hyderabad or Bangalore and India, which are often described as the Silicon Valleys of India. Well, probably in the future it will be the other way around. The Silicon Valley will be the Bangalore of California.
Do you think the argument's been made then that if we are reversing that countries in Europe, the governments here should be trying to retrain their citizens more so that we know how to use this kind of technology, we can adapt as technology does?
For better or worse, governments in Europe are already trying to do this. For instance, I'm thinking about France, where there are a number of experimental services who put citizens to work to train artificial intelligence for, well, the public good. Now, the point is that we probably have to ask ourselves, do we want this kind of future? A future where, in order to train these smart technologies, we are basically losing out in terms of social protection, in terms of workers' rights, and in terms of recognition of labor. And this is, of course, the object of several social struggles that now are taking place all around the world. Think about, I don't know, platforms such as Uber, who is involved in many automation programs and is now also the object of several litigations and class actions. Think about Google, think about Facebook, and also Amazon Mechanical Turk. Amazon is, of course, the giant that we all know, but not many people know that one of the core elements of Amazon is called Amazon Mechanical Turk, which is a market for micro work. And micro workers on Amazon Mechanical Turk are now trying to be recognized.
Just before we let you go, I have to ask you one final question. As you take the big picture view, how do jobs, selfishly like mine, how do journalists survive in the next 50 years with automation?
To be fair, I think that your job is not in danger, especially if you see what happened today when The Guardian published the first completely automated article published by a bot. It was not exactly an article, it was a 120-word piece with a lot of bullet points.
Right, so there's still hope for me yet?
Yes, I think so.
Thank you very much indeed. That reassuring message, at least for me this morning. That was Alberto Casilli talking to us on the programme.